Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take the source material you share with us and, well, we extract the essential knowledge and insight.
And today we are going into the classical world.
We are, but not in the way you might expect. No ancient history, no archaeology.
No, this is different. We're stepping entirely inside a single narrative.
A really profound piece of literature called A Memory of Wind. And it's a first-person account from a mythological figure, Iphigenia, about her sacrifice and her transformation.
Yeah, and that's our mission for this deep dive, really. It's so focused. We're tracking the story of King Agamemnon's daughter, sacrificed at Aulis to appease the goddess Artemis.
All to get the winds they needed to launch the Greek fleet to Troy. It's a foundational myth.
It is, but this source is just stunning because Iphigenia herself is the narrator. She recounts her betrayal, and this is the critical part, she describes this terrifying, immediate process of her own dissolution.
From a human being into a physical, natural force.
Right, into the very gale that launches the war.
So we're really looking at the cost of war through the lens of one life, one lost life, and analyzing the psychological burden on these so-called heroes.
And exploring the mechanics of what it means to be transformed. I mean, it's a shortcut to understanding the emotional and political complexity that's just layered right under the grand myth.
Okay, so let's set the stage just for a moment. What's the situation as this story opens?
The situation is, it's dire. Helen has fled with Paris to Troy.
Her husband, King Menelaus, calls in his allies for war, and his brother Agamemnon is the commander.
Exactly. And the entire Greek fleet, 1,000 ships, they're all assembled and ready to sail, but they're trapped.
Trapped at the port of Aulis. The sea is completely becalmed, flat as glass, no wind at all.
The sails are limp, nothing is moving. And then the priest of Artemis, Calchas, he makes an announcement.
Right, he reveals the cause of this divine interference. The goddess is angry.
Angry at Agamemnon for some offense, depending on the tradition, maybe he killed a sacred deer, something like that.
And she demands a price, a very specific, exorbitant price.
She needs Agamemnon's eldest daughter, Iphigenia, to be sacrificed on her altar. Only then will she release the wind.
And here's where this source just immediately grabs you. It provides this core twist.
It does, because the common myth, it suggests she was sacrificed and then maybe swapped for a deer at the last second or transformed after she died.
But that's not what happens here.
Not at all. This source asserts that the change began before the knife ever fell.
When?
The instant her father decided to trade her life for the wind.
Wow. Okay, so that single insight changes everything.
Completely. It reframes the sacrifice. It's not a sudden, sharp event. It's a drawn-out internal process.
A kind of psychological trauma and physical dissolution.
Her perceptions literally start vanishing before she even gets to Aulis, before she even knows about the wedding ruse.
So the self, herself, begins to dismantle the very moment that fate is decreed by the patriarchal power structure.
Yes. It connects the trauma directly to the political decision. The betrayal by the highest authority figure in her life, her father, it initiates this profound dissociation.
And the world, as she knows it, just starts to blow away.
Becoming the very substance of her future captivity.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's unpack this dissolution because it's documented with just, chilling specificity.
It really is. This isn't some poetic generalization about life fading. It's a detailed list of what she loses.
The narrative details how, right after her father's decision, these intimate, mundane elements of her life just begin to slip away from her.
And that detail, it really grounds the enormity of the loss, She describes losing the flavor of rancid oil.
Rancid oil. Something so unremarkable, almost unpleasant. A staple of life in a palace kitchen.
Exactly. And then at the same time, she loses the shade of green that flushes new leaves.
And these things, they slip away from her and become, as the source puts it, gentle breezes that would later weave themselves into the strength of my gale.
We should probably linger on that juxtaposition for a second.
Yeah. Rancid oil and new green leaves.
Yeah.
It feels so intentional.
I think so. One is this sort of low practical element of just living, of sustenance. And the other, the color green, is life. It's growth. It's hope.
So to lose both at the same time,
Yeah.
It suggests a total erasure of the whole continuum of existence.
From the practical right through to the poetic, it's a systematic dismantling of all the sensory anchors that define her reality.
She's losing her domestic identity.
Absolutely. The source also emphasizes the loss of tactile things, of sounds. It mentions the grunt of goats being led to slaughter, and the roughness of wool against calloused fingertips, and the scent of figs simmering in honey wine.
Those are the textures of a safe world, a often female-centered domestic world. wool, food, the sounds of daily life,
The small constants.
and have them just dissolve to literally become air. It shows her identity is just being volatilized. Her whole life experience is turning into atmospheric pressure.
And it's not just an external thing she's observing, it changes her physical relationship to her own surroundings.
Right, she describes standing up and the sensation of the palace floor just blows away.
She says she feels as if I stood on nothing.
She's losing her grounding. She's becoming weightless, anchorless.
And that immediately translates into a failure of memory, of spatial memory.
She can't find her way home in her own home.
That's right. It moves from sensory loss to a failure of procedural memory, the kind of ingrained knowledge of how to get around.
She forgets the path to her mother's rooms. She forgets how to find her little brother, Orestes.
She's just pacing these bright corridors, but there are no answers, because the pathways in her own mind that connect space to meaning are just shutting down.
She's a foreigner in her own palace before she's even left it.
But the most potent symbol of this loss, I think, it centers on the color green.
Yeah, that part is devastating. It comes back when her mother, Clytemnestra, looks at her.
Right, and that visual trigger, it brings this brief, momentary flicker of human connection back. Iphigenia remembers, mother's eyes are like new green leaves.
But the thought is just annihilated instantly.
She tries to chase it, to hold on to it, but she says she could no longer remember what green might be.
That is the ultimate disconnection, isn't it? The color green symbolizes her bond to her mother, her connection to nature, to life itself.
And to look at her mother, the physical source of her love, and realize that the conceptual meaning of that color is gone.
It means she's lost the ability to cognitively recognize life.
The devastation is just so comprehensive. She can say the words, new green leaves, but the sensory reality behind them is gone.
It's like hearing a word in a language you've forgotten. You know the sound, but there's no meaning attached.
And that points to this deep, deep psychological trauma that's happening long before any physical injury.
This psychological fracturing is then described through a really powerful metaphor about memory itself.
And the blanket metaphor.
Yes. Her memory became strange and partial, like a blanket that has been cut into pieces and then sewn up again.
And that's such an accurate depiction of trauma-induced narrative breakdown. The fabric of the events is there, but the smooth flow, the sense of continuity is gone.
You just have these islands of detail.
But the bridges between them, the context, the emotional logic, it's all missing. It's just stitches.
And the source clarifies that these memories, these fragments, they only exist when she actively reaches for them and forces them into being.
She's fighting. She's fighting to maintain herself against complete atmospheric dispersal.
She even says it's this massive mental effort just to stabilize a thought, to make it tangible. She says, and this is crucial, I need my memories to transcend the ephemera of thought.
I need them to be tangible for the brief moment when they exist as gale winds shrieking in your ear.
So the very act of this source existing, of her telling this story, is her struggle for preservation.
She is weaponizing her life story. She's turning her personal narrative into a physical, inescapable force.
The very wind that will assault her father and his fleet. Her story becomes a perpetual scream of betrayal, forced into the atmosphere.
That sense of erasure, of losing her own physical reality, it leads us right to the moment that caused it all.
Agamemnon's choice at the war council.
Exactly. Iphigenia, who is now, spectral and dissolving, she reconstructs that scene. And she focuses so intensely on the political weight, the external pressure her father was under.
She's focused on the staff of office he's holding. She sees it as this powerful symbol.
Heavy with wood, heavy with burdens. It's the physical weight of his authority, but also the impossible expectations of the entire Greek alliance.
And into this charged moment steps Calchas, the priest,
who delivers the demand for virgin blood on her altar. And Iphigenia's analysis just cuts right through all the religious rhetoric to the raw calculation.
One daughter's life for the wind that would allow you to launch a fleet that could kill thousands.
A child for a war. Her life is reduced to a cold operational necessity.
An entry on the ledger.
That's it. And the political pressure is personified so brilliantly by the other heroes there, Menelaus and Odysseus.
They're just watching him, waiting for him to falter. They know he's now an obstacle to their desires.
And you see two very distinct types of pressure. You have Menelaus, the wronged husband,
who is drinking red wine rapidly, with droplets spilling like blood through the thicket of his beard.
It's aggressive, almost animalistic, a kind of bloody hunger for action, for vengeance now.
And then, in stark contrast, you have Odysseus.
The consummate politician, calculated. He savored slow, languorous sips, his canny eyes intent on your face.
He's patient. He's assessing Agamemnon's weakness, just waiting for him to crumble under the threat.
And the threat is implicit, but it's what Iphigenia focuses on next, the fear flickering in the torchlight.
And it's crystal clear. Sacrifice your daughter or sacrifice your kingdom.
They would take the entire army and march on Mycenae instead. They'd overthrow him if he put his family before the war.
The text notes that Agamemnon just stares into his golden cup, and he sees the wine as dark as my condemned blood.
So he gets it. He understands the moral horror. But he still can't act against the momentum of this political machine.
Which brings us to Iphigenia's definition of his character failure. And it's all about what he didn't do.
Right. He did not dash the staff across his knee, which would have been destroying the very symbol of the office that was demanding this.
He didn't yell at Menelaus. The gall of Menelaus to ask for her life when he couldn't sacrifice the pleasure of a faithless harlot.
He didn't demand an alternative from Calchas. He clutched the staff of office and he swallowed the wine.
And that silent, passive surrender to political necessity is defined as the ultimate betrayal.
It's so much worse than an act of murder because it was a choice made purely out of cowardice.
And to really highlight the magnitude of this political failure, she contrasts it with an earlier, much more intimate memory.
The king versus the father.
She recounts this night when she was young, and he brought her, wearing his armor, to see his men training in the fog.
This memory is so specific, so revealing. He's wearing his heavy boar's tusk helmet, a boiled leather cuirass.
He had a sudden desire to see my daughter. He wanted to share the marvel of his men with her.
And they look like a ghostly rank of dismembered limbs and armor, just appearing and vanishing in the moonlight. He wanted her to witness his power, no matter how terrifying it was.
He was trying to bring her into his world.
Even just for a moment, he tries to teach her to swing a weapon with a brand. She tells her, pretend you're a warrior.
But she's awkward. She's too small. And in her fumbling, she accidentally crushes a dandelion he'd laid out. A fragile silver moon.
And his reaction is the pivot point.
Yeah. It's a playful dismissal, but it completely defines her limitations in his eyes.
It's a good thing you were born a girl. And then he gives her ponytail a quick tug.
And that dismissal, that gentle reminder that she's irrelevant to his world of war, that's what fuels her later reflection.
She realizes his affection was conditional. It was tied to her obedience, her compliance.
He never stopped expecting her to just stumble after him and obey his commands, no matter how wild or cruel.
And she asks those questions as the wind, looking back. Why did you get me that night? Why not my mother?
Why wasn't it enough to just share that moment with your men?
And her conclusion is just devastating in its prescience. Things have never ended well for me when you've led me out of the world of women and into the world of men.
That night, crushing the dandelion was just an innocent rehearsal.
For the fatal journey to Aulis, where she would be the fragile thing crushed beneath the weight of his authority.
The journey to Aulis itself immediately emphasizes this dehumanization.
It really does. Clytemnestra is still in denial about the real reason for the trip, and she's just meticulously packing for her daughter.
And Iphigenia observes so chillingly that she was put in the wagon with the clothing and the yarn and the dried fruit.
Placing her as one more item of baggage to bring to Aulis, a bride for Achilles.
She is literally a commodity being transported.
And while the mother is focused on all these domestic details of a wedding, Iphigenia is focused on her bond with her little brother, Orestes.
Clytemnestra places him in her lap for the journey.
And the focus on Orestes reveals Iphigenia's deepening detachment. Orestes is just a toddler. He communicates with the gestures. He takes his first steps with slow, arduous caution.
He's constantly gauging whether independence was worth the risk of falling.
And Iphigenia worries that as he gets older, words will obliterate the easy understanding of our hands and faces.
Which is such a tragic fear, because her impending death makes that whole concern moot.
She tries to sing him a little song, a lullaby, but the memory of it decays halfway through the second verse.
The dissolution of her mind is just happening in real time.
And Clytemnestra's denial is etched into her physical appearance on this journey. Her braids are spoiled, dust is emphasizing the lines on her face, her eyes are red.
We learned her arthritis has gotten worse, in proportion to her worry over the crisis whirling around her sister Helen.
Her body's physical affliction is mirroring the political crisis she's so desperately trying to ignore.
Her answers about marriage and war are just laced with this resignation.
She laments that she'd always expected to raise Orestes alone, that she knew Agamemnon was destined for war, but
But she thought she'd have Iphigenia for loneliness and companionship.
it shows how this war machine isn't just claiming Iphigenia, it's destroying the mother's entire support structure, her whole sense of the future.
And when they finally get to Aulis, the scene just perfectly captures that stasis.
1,000 ships, sitting motionless on a sea as flat as glass.
The wilted sails drooped, pining for a wind that refused to come.
Even the painted eyes on the ship's prows, the eyes that are meant to guide them, they're just staring blankly forward, paralyzed.
The environment perfectly reflects the psychological state of the whole expedition. They are stuck.
But the men, the soldiers, they're described with this unsettling intensity. This huge camp is full of regiments forming restless circles around fires.
And their strength is just diverted into pointless games of chance played with stones.
They polish their armor until the metal shines like new minted coins. They are shining golden men waiting to stretch their flaming limbs.
But with no purpose, no war to fight, that immense energy is just self-consuming.
And Iphigenia observes this crucial point. Left in the harbor with no one to fight, they were burning up fast. They couldn't survive without wind to stoke them.
They needed new things to burn. They needed fuel.
Which is her devastating realization of what her role is. She isn't a noble sacrifice. She's the required fuel for this gigantic, restless, destructive war machine.
And the truth is finally revealed to her by Artemis.
The old slave who had been with Clytemnestra since her dowry.
And because of her memory loss, Iphigenia barely recognizes him. She just registers his profound sadness.
When he helps her down from the wagon, he's trembling violently, and he quietly suggests, "You could still ride back to Mycena."
And Clytemnestra, still clinging to this wedding delusion, just snaps at him.
We see this brief flash of Iphigenia's memory of Iamos as this kind, smiling man, which makes his inner conflict just so much more agonizing.
And when Agamemnon finally shows up, he only calls for Clytemnestra. He refuses to see Iphigenia.
He shouts, "I can't," when his wife insists, "You have to see your Iphigenia one last time while she's still a maiden."
His evasion confirms everything.
And Iamos, who is just torn apart by his conflicting loyalties, he finally pushes himself forward.
And reveals the ruse. The wedding was a trap. The sacrifice is at dawn.
He admits, "I'm a coward for waiting so long." He knows that waiting until the last minute is its own form of betrayal.
With that truth exposed, Iphigenia's perception of the women in her life, it sharpens.
And it's complicated by the violence that allowed her father's reign in the first place. The source gives us this really nuanced view of Clytemnestra.
She's seen as stern and sentimental, and she's happiest when she's setting things in their designated places. Dyes, spices, children.
So her whole emotional framework relies on control, on order. And the crisis around her sister Helen is this radical intrusion of chaos.
Which is why her arthritis got worse in proportion to her worry. Her body was physically manifesting the stress of this collapsing domestic order.
And that collapse begins with Helen, a woman depicted with this powerful ambivalence, this glamour.
When Iphigenia was 9, Clytemnestra gave her this terrifying, cryptic warning about Helen.
She said Helen was born from an egg because of Zeus as a swan, and therefore she distorts the world around her. Never look at her too closely, you'll go blind.
The implication of being born from an egg is just. It's so profound it suggests she's not fully human.
She's a crystalline, perfect anomaly, a divine disruption of nature.
And this quality of disruption is what distorts perception around her.
She is glamour itself. Her skin is like beaten gold, her eyes the shade of fallen night. She just arrays herself under the canopy looking tousled and intimate.
She's intoxicatingly beautiful, but also seems fundamentally detached from the messiness of actual human life.
But Iphigenia also catches this moment of deep resignation in Helen. She confesses to Clytemnestra, "I was never raised to be a mother. I was only taught to be a wife."
She's admitting her whole existence is defined by these transactional roles men have imposed on her.
A definition that is now causing a massive international war.
And that sadness, that resignation, it sets the stage for the terrifying secret Helen tells young Iphigenia. She's trying to warn her.
She leads Iphigenia away and tells her about Clytemnestra's first marriage to Tantalus, the king before Agamemnon seized the throne.
And this unveiling of Agamemnon's past is absolutely foundational to Iphigenia's final confrontation with him.
Helen explains that Agamemnon murdered Tantalus, and then in this ultimate act of terror and domination, he took the baby, Tantalus's son, from Clytemnestra's arms.
And the detail in the source is unflinching.
It is. He dashed it to the stones and smashed it to pieces.
It's not just a murder. It's the establishment of a regime built on absolute unrestrained violence against the innocent.
And it explains the cycle of violence this family is just trapped in.
Iphigenia's immediate response is pure denial, instinctive.
Driven by love for her father and the social stigma around Helen, she rejects it as a story from a jealous woman, vain woman, boastful woman.
She refuses to believe her father would kill a child.
Which is a necessary defense mechanism for a child, right? To accept that truth means accepting that the man she loves is a proven monster capable of infanticide.
So when she runs back to her mother and confronts her, Clytemnestra's reaction is this vague denial. Protective, but completely ineffective.
No one would be monstrous enough to do that. She strokes her hair, trying to use the old domestic comforts to ward off this monstrous external truth.
But the truth can't be contained. Iphigenia later overhears this whispered, desperate conversation between Helen and Clytemnestra.
And Helen confirms it. She calls Agamemnon a killer, a monster who would kill her in a moment if it suited him.
And Clytemnestra's response is maybe the most heartbreaking detail in the whole source.
The depth of her self-delusion.
She says, he won't hurt her. He's her father.
She clings to this irrational belief that paternal love can transcend a history of brutal, calculated murder.
Even though she personally witnessed the murder of her other son by this exact man.
So it reveals the depth of the violence and denial that Iphigenia is trapped in. The violence of the past enabled the current kingdom.
And now the kingdom demands a repeat of that violence. Clytemnestra's inability to confront the past has left her daughter completely vulnerable to the present horror.
So knowing the horrific truth about her husband, Clytemnestra tries one last desperate maneuver.
She focuses on the only thing these heroes seem to value: honor and reputation.
She confronts Achilles. His name was used in the wedding ruse, right? To lure Iphigenia to Aulis.
And the scene with Achilles is this crucial analysis of the transactional nature of heroism.
He's the epitome of arrogant, self-serving glory. When Clytemnestra approaches him, he just eyes her dismissively.
He questions why she's even talking to him and says he thought a powerful man like Agamemnon would have better control of his women.
His self-regard is just immense. He says, "I'm the son of Thetis, goddess of the sea. I've slain 1,000 men. I wear glory like other men wear scent."
Let's just pause on that quote for a second. I wear glory like other men wear scent.
It's not something he achieves. It's an intrinsic part of him, a personal, fragrant attribute.
It implies his reputation is completely detached from the morality of his actions. Glory is superficial. It's something worn like perfume, not earned.
Right. And he instantly dismisses marrying Iphigenia. He's never even seen her. She holds no glory for him.
So Clytemnestra realizes her only leverage is that her husband used Achilles' name. He compromised his personal honor.
So she switches tactics entirely, from political leverage to raw sexual supplication.
The stern and proper woman vanished. She's replaced by this figure of raw, visible need.
She lifts her hem to show her plump calves. She kneels. She begs him.
She's trying to manipulate him with desire and helplessness. Do you want me to beg? My daughter and I are helpless.
She's forcing him to either save her out of moral obligation or, violate her out of lust.
And Achilles is tempted for a second. The text notes a flicker of desire in his eyes, because she's Helen's sister.
But then he steps back, repelled by her need. And his final decision just proves his priority is self-preservation of his reputation, not morality.
He declares he'll settle the matter of his honor with Agamemnon, the matter of his name being soiled by the lie.
And then we will sail to Troy.
He makes it so clear. Iphigenia's life is just collateral damage. Her existence is only significant if her beauty or status was somehow greater than Helen's.
Since she's not, she's expendable.
As that final dark night descends, Iphigenia considers all her alternatives. She's lost faith in everyone.
She thinks about running to Achilles or Menelaus or Odysseus, pleading like a seductress, imagining what Helen would do.
She sees herself as a dandelion, easily crushed and easily conquered.
But she rejects that path. She realizes her clumsiness might just justify their cruelty.
She dismisses pleading because she is only a girl and just too tired to chase her own death.
It's not cowardice, it's brutal exhaustion, an acknowledgement that she has no agency, no power to negotiate for her own survival in this world of men.
So the final confrontation arrives when Agamemnon comes to get her.
He's pretending to be joyful. "Oh, Iphigenia, you look so beautiful."
But the facade is so weak. He's crying. His smile is as false as mother's had been.
And Clytemnestra confronts him, demanding a plain answer. "Are you planning to kill our daughter?"
Agamemnon is silent, just clutching the hilt of his sword.
So Clytemnestra grabs Orestes, holds the toddler up to his father, and screams this prophecy of their future.
He'll hate you or he'll imitate you. You'll teach your son to be a murderer.
And Agamemnon retreats to his familiar political defense. His voice cracks. "Menelaus and Odysseus would take the armies and bring them to march against Mycenae. Don't you see? I have no choice."
He's trying to blame political necessity, the external pressure, for his moral failure.
And this is the moment Iphigenia, even as she's dissolving into air, finds her voice, a voice of absolute analytical defiance.
She tells him to stop making her death a difficult decision rendered by a great man.
She refuses his pity. She demands that he own his power, his terrible sovereign choice.
And her crucial statement, which is really the political thesis of this whole source, is, "My life isn't yours to barter. The choice should have been mine."
She's not arguing for her life anymore. She's arguing for her agency in her own death.
She's demanding the power back from the political system that decided she was collateral.
And then she lands the final devastating blow, connecting the present betrayal to the past horror that Helen revealed.
Did he look like Orestes, father? Did my elder half-brother look like Orestes when you dashed him to the rocks?
She forces him to confront the cyclical nature of his monstrous acts.
And as her emotions lift off her like evaporating steam, fear, sadness, love, all of it just vanishing, she delivers these chilling, paradoxical instructions.
They're less comfort and more prophecy. She tells her mother not to mourn, but to redirect her energy. Crush dandelions. Run by the river.
Embrace the small, fragile things and the uncontainable force of nature.
And her command to her father is pure, distilled, weaponized rage, fueled by the suffering of her own dissolution.
I want you to think of all the suffering I've felt and magnify it 1,000 times. When you reach the shores of Troy, unleash it all on their women.
Let their elder brothers be dashed like infants on the rocks.
She is commanding him to replicate the exact violence he committed on her half-brother.
Yeah.
But on a massive scale.
She's weaponizing her suffering, dictating that her betrayal must fuel not just the win, but the subsequent cruelty of the entire war.
So Iphigenia is escorted to the temple. She's voiceless now, her human form nearly gone.
Achilles intercepts her one last time. He sees some newfound courage in her, or transcendence, and says she's as beautiful as your aunt.
And he offers to marry her if she provides a little persuasion.
A profoundly transactional request. Even at the foot of the altar, she just ignores him and marches on.
The sacrifice itself is rapid, almost mechanical. Iphigenia notes that Calchas is just an instrument, like Helen, or the jeweled twig he uses.
The real force behind the action is purely her father's will, the result of political necessity.
She notes that her body simply forgot to be a body, and then she was gone. She disappeared.
And the instant of transformation is described with this incredible metaphorical power. Artemis holds her like a child holds a dandelion.
And with a single breath, the goddess blows the wind that was trapped in her body out of her girl's shape.
She has died, and she is immediately the gale.
And this newly created force is vast, brutal, and angry. It immediately flexes its power.
She starts her destructive work right away, upturning tents as a child knocks over his toys.
She feels the sea rumble and whip into these enormous waves, powerful enough to drown the entire fleet.
She is the wild, uncontrollable element she wanted to become.
And yet, even in that transformation, her connection to her past pain is still there.
She tastes her mother's salt tears as Clytemnestra weeps, and she turns those tears into salt on my wind.
She blows a chill embrace around Orestes, making his eyes big and frightened. The love she feels for him can only manifest now as a terrifying, cold fury.
And Agamemnon's initial reaction is the final, heartbreaking confirmation of his self-serving nature.
He smiles and shouts to Calchas, "It's my daughter!"
He sees her not as a lost life, but as a successfully delivered promise. A divine guarantee that his expedition can finally proceed.
But the reality of her being the wind hits him immediately. Her cold fury whips between your ears.
And he claps his hands to his head, realizing the undeniable screaming voice of the wind is his furious, conscious daughter.
He has no choice but to shout, "Set sail, it's time to get out of this harbor." Not out of strategy, but out of pure fear of the force he's unleashed.
And here we reach the ultimate tragedy, the final layer of her captivity.
She's now vast and undeniable, capable of crushing the fleet, but she's immediately subjugated.
She notes, I am helpless again, always and ever a hostage to someone else's desires.
Artemis imposes her will with ease. The goddess draws the wild, free wind back like a bowstring.
And with one strong, smooth motion, Artemis aims the newly made Iphigenia, this brutal gale, at the fleet.
Forcing her to blow them fiercely, implacably to Troy.
She died to give them wind, and she became the wind, only to be controlled and forced to fulfill the exact purpose of her sacrifice.
Her transformation into power didn't grant her agency. It just changed the instrument of her enslavement.
From the political will of her father to the divine will of the goddess.
So what does this all mean? What's the high cost of this deep dive?
Well, the core knowledge we've gained is so layered. You see the intense psychological pressure on Agamemnon, forcing him to pick political survival over paternal duty.
And that's all rooted in a cycle of violence that was established long before this war even began.
And we track the profound loss of identity during trauma, where sensory reality and memory just dissolve into these disconnected fragments. It's a powerful metaphor for psychological destruction.
And crucially, the source redefines her death. It wasn't a noble sacrifice, it wasn't a substitution, it was a violent transformation into an enslaved, controlled force.
She became an elemental power, the wild wind. But that power was immediately put under the control of the very authorities who demanded the transaction in the first place.
I mean, this analysis shows that even in the grandest conflicts, wars over honor or divine favor, the highest price is paid by those who are deemed collateral.
The true cost of a war isn't just the lives lost. It's the very foundational elements of existence. The color green, the scent of figs, the stability of the earth, the memory of songs that are consumed and weaponized to fuel the conflict.
Iphigenia, as the wind, became a force greater than any king. And yet she was immediately subjugated and aimed by a goddess to serve the exact purpose she died to enable.
She asked for the choice to be her own. So what new form of agency or captivity did she ultimately find as the wind? I mean, consider this. If her life was bartered, was her death any less of a transaction? Even in transformation, her power was forever controlled by those who betrayed her. Does true power only exist when it's free of a purpose imposed by others?